This is Andrew Stotts of A. Stotts Investment Research, and today I'm going to explain about the solid growth that I see in the healthcare sector. The first thing is that the healthcare sector is defensive. It's never had a loss on, particularly on ROA, for the past 18 years. In the emerging world, it's been very solid growth, and the U.S. in particular, but the West, has come out of the ICU and now is doing a bit better. In fact, right now, North America, particularly the U.S., is probably one of the most attractive regions when we look at both profitability and growth. I'm going to show you two different examples, one that is a good performer right now and one that is a poor performer. Again, when I talk about performance, I'm talking about overall fundamentals, valuation, momentum, and risk. The good performer is Bumrungrad Hospital in Thailand, and the poor performer is ZMC in China. So if we look at the sector, we can see the ROA in this case has never gone negative and has been between, let's say, 5 and 9% over the last 20 or so years. This is an aggregate of 1,200 healthcare companies across the world. And so basically what you can see is that the developed markets, the yellow line, has been steadily falling over time, but I would say not a disaster. But what you can see is that the performance has been weaker on ROA than emerging markets. So that's profitability. Now let's look at growth. And what we can see is that the emerging world has had very solid growth, and the developed world, in particular US, had a 52% fall in EPS in 2007 and then a bounce back in 2008. But then it went into a couple of years of pain that the emerging markets never really went through. And so if we look at it over a long period of time, we can see a cumulative average growth rate of about 15.6% for the emerging world versus about 4% for developed. And also, basically, we've seen in the emerging markets that it's been pretty steady. We've only had 3 negative years of growth, one very tiny in 2011. Now, if we look at the return on assets, the profitability, and the chart on the left, and EPS, the chart on the right, what we'll see in this case is that Middle East and Africa is most attractive in the healthcare sector, considering both. In fact, this is part of the reason why we've seen a lot of investment go into that region. And Asia ex-Japan is struggling right now when it comes to this, both profitability and growth. So let's take a little bit more deeper look at these two companies, Bumrungrad Hospital and ZMC. So again, remember that I look at 4 boxes here. The first is a description, the second is my profitable growth triangle, then I look at 4 elements, and then I'll look at the revenue a bit. So let's go into the first one, and that is that Bumrungrad has 580 beds and has about 60% of revenue actually coming from foreign patients. It's a very highly accredited hospital and one of the first in Asia to get the Joint Commission International accreditation. It's got a wellness and aging center which has been going on for a long time. In fact, I've been a customer there in my past. And then it has a company called Asia Global Research, which does clinical trials. And finally, it's the hospital that had the first case of Middle East respiratory syndrome in Thailand, was able to contain that very well. So it kind of tested their systems. If we look at profitability, profitable growth, the triangle that I use for every company, we can see that in this case, 1 or 2 is good and a 9 or 10 is bad. And we can see 4 years, this company's been in the top 2 deciles in global healthcare. And this is compared, if you see in the bottom right, it says benchmarked against 400 medium-sized healthcare companies worldwide. So very impressive performance. And most of that performance is coming from profitability. If we look at the 4 elements that I look at, overall, the company is ranked very well amongst peers globally, and we can see that fundamentals have been about 16% for ROA versus 6% for the world's healthcare, so very good. Valuation's a bit expensive. This is not a cheap company. In fact, they have a small amount of equity, so you can see a price to book of 12 times. And momentum is excellent on both price and fundamentals. And finally, risk is good with a low beta and net cash. Finally, we look at the revenue breakdown, and you can see that in this case, almost all the business is coming from its one hospital. and also foreign patients account for about 61% of the patients. And finally, that the countries that are the main contributors are Myanmar, UAE, Oman, US, and Cambodia. So now let's go on to ZMC, and let's look at, again, the 4 boxes I look at: the description, the profitable growth, the 4 elements, and the revenue breakdown. So let's start with the description. And basically, it's China's biggest producer of vitamin E and B-carotene supplements. It's also pharmaceutical business has grown to become the biggest, and its animal supplements are sold directly to major feed plants. And its manufacturing of vitamin E and B-carotene faces challenges right now. And recently, government changes in policy have put some pressure on them. So it's within the healthcare sector, but it's more focused on pharmaceuticals than a hospital. And so if we look at the profitable growth triangle on the upper right-hand corner, what we're going to see is this company was actually ranked number 1 in 2011 against, in this case, 300 large healthcare companies across the world, and that slipped to 2, then to 6, then to 9, and to 10. And majority of that deterioration happened in the area of growth on the right, and we can see that that was both sales growth falling and also margin collapsing. So the company's been struggling. If we look at the 4 elements, we can see overall the company is very poor on an overall basis. ROE 1%, trades at about 2 times price to book. Price and fundamentals are weak, and risk is not looking good. If we look at the business of the company, we can see that the top 5 customers account for about 22% of revenue, and domestic revenue is about 65% of total revenue. And there's some revenue coming from foreign clients, but not that much. So that wraps it up for both ZMC and Bumrungrad and the overall healthcare sector. If you have any questions or you want to get more, just contact us at LinkedIn at the following, or at our email or at our website right below.